There is a city on the southern edge of California where the Pacific Ocean meets the Mexican border, and the sun almost never stops shining. And what has come out of that particular combination of geography, culture, and climate is a food story that most of the country has been eating without ever knowing its origin. San Diego does not get the culinary credit that Los Angeles or New York or New Orleans receives. It does not have the mythology those cities carry. What it does have is a border, a coastline, a community of immigrants and fishermen and surfers and military families and entrepreneurs who have been combining ingredients and traditions in ways that the rest of the country eventually adopted wholesale. If you have eaten a fish taco anywhere in America in the last 40 years, you are eating San Diego. If you have ever put French fries inside a burrito and thought it was your own idea, that idea has a specific address. Today, we are counting down 10 foods that were born in San Diego, the stories behind them, and why a city that the rest of the food world tends to overlook has been quietly inventing the future of American eating for decades. Stay until the end, because number one is something that changed the way an entire generation of Americans understood what a burrito could be. Number 10, the rolled taco. Before fast food chains spread their version of Mexican food across the country, before drive-through windows selling crunchy shells became a national institution, there was a specific preparation being served in the Mexican neighborhoods of San Diego that nobody outside the community had a name for yet. The rolled taco. A corn tortilla wrapped tightly around a filling of seasoned potato or seasoned meat, deep fried until the outside became golden and rigid and unmistakably crisp. Then served with shredded iceberg lettuce, a drizzle of sour cream, and salsa that had been made fresh that morning. The rolled taco predates every fast food approximation of it. It comes from the taquero tradition, the street food culture of Mexico, that crossed the border with the families who built the neighborhoods of Logan Heights and Barrio Logan and National City in San Diego. Communities where cooking was not a performance or a restaurant concept, but simply the way you fed your family every night and the way you fed your neighbors on weekends. The fried roll was practical. Leftovers could be used as filling. The frying extended the tortilla's life. The result just happened to be extraordinary. What the rest of the country calls a taquito, San Diego calls a rolled taco, and the distinction matters less than the product itself. Bite into a properly made one, and you get that specific sound, a sharp crack followed by a secondary crunch, and then the filling warm and savory and completely unlike anything that comes out of a national chain's kitchen. The lettuce wilts slightly from the heat. The sour cream cuts through the richness. The salsa brings acid and brightness. It is finished in seconds and you want another one immediately, which has always been the point. Number 9. Abalone. San Diego's relationship with the sea goes back further than the city itself. Back to the Kumeyaay people who lived along this coastline for thousands of years, and whose relationship with the ocean's resources shaped the food culture of the region long before the Spanish missions arrived. Abalone was central to that story. A large marine snail with a shell that is dull on the outside and breathtakingly iridescent on the interior, abalone was harvested along the rocky, shallow waters of the California coast and eaten by communities who understood that the ocean around San Diego offered something that no other stretch of coastline in North America quite replicated. The preparation of abalone requires patience. The meat is dense and tough and will punish anyone who does not take the time to pound it properly, beating it with a wooden mallet until it relaxes and becomes something you could cut with a fork. Done correctly, the result is firm without being chewy, with a flavor that is oceanic but not fishy. Something between clam and scallop, but with a particular sweetness that neither of those captures. San Diego's Portuguese fishing community, who arrived in large numbers in the late 19th and early 20th centuries from the Azores and from mainland Portugal, brought with them cooking techniques for shellfish that elevated abalone from survival food to something approaching ceremony. Wild California abalone is now heavily protected, its populations reduced by overharvesting and disease, and what remains of the tradition lives in aquaculture operations along the California coast and in the older restaurants of San Diego that remember what the product used to represent. When you encounter it, typically sautéed quickly in butter with lemon and a scattering of herbs, you are tasting something that connects the current coastline directly to everything that came before it. Number 8. The Craft Beer Revolution's Kitchen. San Diego is the craft beer capital of the United States. That is not a boast or a marketing slogan. It is a designation supported by the sheer density of independent breweries operating within the county. More breweries per capita than any other region in the country, and by the outsized influence that breweries founded here have had on the national conversation about what beer can be. But this is a food story, not a beer story. And the reason it belongs on this list is that the craft beer movement in San Diego did something to food that nobody had predicted when it started. When Carl Strauss Brewing Company opened in 1989 and became San Diego's first post-prohibition craft brewery, it brought with it a kitchen. Not a bar kitchen with nachos and wings, but an actual kitchen staffed by people who understood that the complexity of a well-made craft beer demanded food with equivalent complexity. The pairing culture that developed in San Diego over the following decade, matching specific hop profiles against specific dishes, matching malt character against slow-cooked meats, matching the sourness of a wild ale against the richness of charcuterie, spread from San Diego into the national brewery kitchen model that is now standard everywhere from Vermont to Texas. Stone Brewing, founded in Escondido in San Diego County in 1996, took this further still. Their emphasis on bold, aggressively hopped beers influenced a generation of brewers, and their restaurant operations showed that a brewery kitchen could aspire to something genuinely ambitious. The food culture that grew up around San Diego's beer scene is woven into every taproom restaurant that exists in America today, whether those restaurants know the origin of the model they are following or not. Number 7, the street dog. Walk along the streets of Mission Hills or Hillcrest or downtown San Diego on a Friday night, and you will encounter it eventually. A cart, a flat griddle, the smell of bacon frying in its own fat. A hot dog wrapped in a strip of bacon and cooked on that griddle until both the dog and the bacon are crisped and caramelized and completely inseparable from each other, then placed in a soft bun and topped with grilled onions and peppers, mayonnaise, mustard, ketchup, and often a spoonful of fresh salsa that drips immediately and does not care at all. This is the San Diego street dog, and it arrived with the street vendors who came from Sonora, Mexico, where the preparation is called a dogos or Sonoran hot dog, and has been a staple of the state's street food culture for generations. The specific version that took root in San Diego reflects the border crossing of that tradition, maintaining the bacon-wrapped core while incorporating the condiment preferences of a mixed community, adding the fresh salsa of Mexican cooking alongside the mustard and ketchup of American hot dog culture. The San Diego street dog operates primarily at night. The carts appear as the restaurants close and remain in position until the last customer has been fed, which is often very late. There is no indoor version that captures quite what the outdoor griddle produces. The smokiness of the bacon in open air, the particular way the heat from the griddle softens the bun just slightly, the theater of watching someone build the whole thing from components in about 90 seconds. It is one of the great street foods in the country, and it is absolutely, specifically San Diego. Number 6, birria tacos. The story of how birria tacos went from a regional Mexican specialty to a global social media phenomenon runs directly through San Diego, and more specifically through the communities that exist on both sides of the border between San Diego and Tijuana. A border that has always been more of a concept than a barrier when it comes to food. Birria is originally from the state of Jalisco in Mexico, a long simmered stew of goat or beef cooked with dried chilies, aromatics, and a combination of spices that varies by family and by cook, but always produces something deeply red, profoundly rich, and complex in a way that takes hours to develop and cannot be rushed. The consommé, the broth left over from the braising, is served alongside as a dipping liquid. In Tijuana, vendors began serving birria in taco form. The tortilla dipped briefly into the fat that floats on the surface of the consommé before being loaded with the stewed meat and griddled until crisp. The resulting taco is simultaneously saucy and crunchy, the tortilla holding its form just long enough before you bite through it into something soft and intensely flavored and warm. San Diego's proximity to Tijuana meant that this preparation traveled across the border through community restaurants and family kitchens long before it became a trend. When birria tacos went viral on social media in 2019 and 2020, the American epicenter of the phenomenon was San Diego, where restaurants and taco trucks that had been serving the dish for years suddenly found lines stretching around the block. San Diego did not invent birria, but San Diego is where America first tasted it properly. Number 5. California cuisine's Southern expression. When Alice Waters is credited with creating California cuisine in Berkeley in the 1970s, the focus is invariably on Northern California, on Chez Panisse and the farmers of the Bay Area, and the philosophical framework that connected the restaurant table to the agricultural source. What that story often leaves out is what was happening simultaneously in San Diego, where a different version of the same instinct was taking shape, shaped not by European cooking traditions and Northern California's artisan farms, but by the particular combination of ingredients that the San Diego landscape and its border location produced in abundance. Chefs working in San Diego in the late 1970s and through the 1980s were doing something that had not been codified as a movement yet. They were combining the produce of San Diego County, the avocados and strawberries and citrus and tomatoes that grow in the canyons and valleys of the region, with the flavors and techniques of Mexican cooking that existed just across the border and throughout the neighborhoods of the city itself. The result was a culinary hybridity that predated the language the food world would eventually develop for it. A borderlands cuisine that was specifically San Diego in a way that nothing else could be. The grilled fish preparations, the fresh salsas served alongside California-grown produce, the combination of citrus acids and chili heat, and the cooling richness of avocado, these are San Diego contributions to the national palate that arrived without fanfare and have never fully been attributed to the place that created them. Number 4. Carne asada fries. This one requires no diplomacy, no shared credit, no acknowledgement of possible origins elsewhere. Carne asada fries are a San Diego invention, full stop, and they represent one of the most successful acts of culinary combination that any regional food culture has ever produced. The components are simple: a bed of crisp French fries, a generous portion of carne asada, which is beef marinated in citrus juice and dried chilies and garlic, and cooked over high heat until it develops the char and the caramelization that the name describes. On top of the asada goes guacamole, made from the San Diego County avocados that grow in Fallbrook and Escondido, and the valleys east of the city. Then shredded cheese, sour cream, and fresh pico de gallo. The whole thing is served in a basket or a tray and is consumed immediately because it does not wait and does not improve with time. The specific origin is contested in the way that all great street food origins are contested, but the dominant account places the invention at the taco shops of San Diego's Mission Hills neighborhood, sometime in the late 1980s. What is not contested is that carne asada fries do not exist in traditional Mexican cooking, do not exist in traditional American cooking, and could only have been created in the specific environment of San Diego's taco shop culture, where the two culinary traditions coexist in the same kitchen, and the people doing the cooking grew up eating from both sides of the table simultaneously. Hit subscribe so you never miss the real stories behind the food on your plate. We are just getting started, and the next two are the biggest of all. Number 3. The California burrito. The California burrito is the San Diego burrito, and it is distinguished from every other burrito in the world by one ingredient that has no precedent in Mexican food tradition: French fries, a flour tortilla, carne asada, sour cream, cheese, guacamole, and a full serving of crispy, hot French fries that have been placed inside the burrito before rolling, where they contribute their starchy bulk and their specific texture to every bite. Nobody in Mexico puts French fries in a burrito. The California burrito is not a Mexican food. It is a San Diego food, born in the taco shops that are as specific to the city as the corner deli is to New York, or the kolache bakery is to Texas. The taco shop is a San Diego institution, a category of restaurant that exists almost nowhere else in quite the same form, serving a menu of Mexican-American combinations at prices that make daily eating possible, operating on hours that stretch well past midnight, catering to a clientele that includes every demographic cross-section of the city simultaneously. The California burrito emerged from this environment sometime in the 1980s, a product of cooks who had access to a fryer and an abundance of carne asada, and who made the logical, if completely unprecedented, decision to combine them in the same package. What they created is something that reads on paper like it should not work, and in practice works so completely that the question of why anyone would make a burrito any other way becomes genuinely difficult to answer. The fries provide a substance and a textural contrast that transforms what would otherwise be a straightforward meat and condiment package into something that satisfies at a level that is almost unreasonably complete. Number 2. Avocado. San Diego County is the avocado capital of the United States. The specific growing conditions of the valleys and hillsides east of the city, the combination of marine air from the Pacific moderated by the coastal mountains, the particular soil character of places like Fallbrook and Valley Center and Escondido produce avocados that the California Avocado Commission has described as among the finest in the world. This has been true for over a century since the first avocado orchards were planted in the county in the early 1900s by growers who recognized that what thrived in Michoacan, Mexico, thrived equally well in this particular stretch of Southern California. But the San Diego contribution to avocado culture goes beyond growing the fruit. San Diego's Mexican-American community introduced the rest of the country to guacamole, to the idea that avocado was not a curiosity or a novelty, but a condiment and a food in its own right, something that belonged at the table at every meal and not just as an occasional garnish. When avocado toast became the defining food phenomenon of the 2000s, the cultural groundwork for that moment had been laid in San Diego for decades, in the kitchens where avocado was treated as a staple rather than a specialty. The Hass avocado variety itself, now accounting for the overwhelming majority of avocado consumption globally, has a California origin story. Rudolf Hass, a mail carrier who lived in La Habra in Southern California, patented the variety in 1935, and while La Habra is Los Angeles County rather than San Diego County, the commercial cultivation and distribution of the Hass variety that made it the dominant global avocado was driven significantly by the San Diego County growers who recognized the variety's superiority for both flavor and shipping durability. Every avocado you eat almost anywhere in the world today traces its commercial dominance to Southern California, and San Diego is at the center of that story. Number 1. The fish taco. Every great food story has a moment of origin that is specific enough to locate on a map. The fish taco's American origin story begins on a spring day in 1983, when a University of Arizona student named Ralph Rubio went surfing in San Felipe, a small fishing village on the Baja California coast in Mexico, and ate a fish taco from a beachside cart run by a vendor named Carlos. What he ate was simple: a corn tortilla, battered fish fried in a small vat of hot oil, a handful of shredded cabbage, a drizzle of a creamy white sauce, a squeeze of lime. That was all. And it was better than anything he had eaten from a similar price point anywhere in his life. Rubio tried to buy the recipe. The vendor declined. Rubio kept eating fish tacos every time he went to San Felipe, which was frequently because he was a surfer and Baja was where the waves were, and he filed away everything he could observe about how they were made. In 1983, he returned to San Diego and opened a small stand in the Mission Bay area with his father. He called it Rubio's. The menu was built around the fish taco he had learned to approximate from Carlos, and the people of San Diego, who were already familiar with the tradition from their own border crossings and Baja trips, recognized it immediately and came back repeatedly. What Rubio's did was take a food that existed in Mexican coastal culture and make it accessible to an American audience without flattening it or removing what made it remarkable. The cabbage remained, the white sauce remained, the corn tortilla remained. The quality of the fish, battered and fried to order, remained. The result was not Americanized Mexican food in the way that the chains had been serving it. It was Mexican coastal food, served with enough consistency and at enough scale that people who had never been to Baja could encounter something genuine. Within a decade, fish tacos were on menus across California. Within 2 decades, they were on menus across the country. Today, there is no coastal restaurant in America that does not serve some version of the fish taco, and there are landlocked restaurants across the Midwest and the South and the Northeast that serve it too. Because the fish taco became that specific kind of food idea that escapes its geography entirely and becomes simply part of what Americans eat. Ralph Rubio has said in interviews that he thinks about Carlos, the beachside vendor from San Felipe, every time he sees how far the fish taco has traveled. The recipe belonged to a tradition older than both of them. What San Diego did was carry that tradition across a border and introduce it to a country that had no idea what it was missing. The fish taco is San Diego's greatest contribution to the American table, and the American table is genuinely better for it. From the rolled tacos of Barrio Logan to the birria that crossed the border through family kitchens. From the craft beer kitchens that taught the country how to pair food with fermented grain, to the fish taco stand that changed everything about how America understood coastal Mexican cooking, San Diego has been inventing and adopting and transforming food for as long as anyone has lived here. It has done this without asking for credit and largely without receiving it, which may be the most San Diego thing about the whole story. The geography does not explain everything, but it explains a great deal. A city at the meeting point of two countries and two food cultures, bounded on the west by a coastline that provides seafood, and on the east by farmland that produces some of the most abundant agricultural variety in the state. Populated by communities whose cooking traditions span Mexico and Portugal and East Asia and everything in between, San Diego was always going to produce food that did not fit neatly into any existing category. What it produced instead was its own category, built from the specific ingredients and people and conditions of one particular place, and then shared with the rest of the country one taco and one burrito and one craft pour at a time. If you have a San Diego food we missed, leave it in the comments. There is a strong argument that the list should be 20 items rather than 10, and we are not done making that argument. Subscribe so you never miss the food histories hiding in plain sight. More stories coming soon. Thanks for watching.